Good evening. Uh, Let me just put this back where it needs to be. Just slightly out of view. Yeah. I think everything else is going smooth here. Guard your privacy. Yeah, I think we're good. Yeah, the microphone thing is lighting up. So. Oh, well, here we are again with better lighting this time that I don't really want to look up to because don't want to ruin my eyes. So let me turn off this TV. That's better. And I'm sure you've seen by the title today that we're going to be talking about gacha games and how they ruin. Get this out of here. Ruin or are ruining gaming as a whole, in my opinion. Because, I've been a gamer a decent while, and I can tell you, the very notion that content is locked behind a very no nonsense gambling wall, it's not good for a game because the people who played the game, whatever the game may be, there's a lot of gotcha games today, and a lot of them are pretty trash, if I'm going to be honest. But some people still play them. Some people lose relationships over them. And some people sink thousands of dollars into them. It's like, bro, how do you get to that point? Also, let me bring this down a little. How do you get to that point, where your game is now no longer, one sec, a canvas, but it's a billboard. And those are some big differences because a billboard is all about advertising. A billboard is trying to actively get you to spend money, but a painting canvas, is an active expression. Like you're just there to express yourself through your painting or sculpting, whatever canvas analogy you prefer. Oh, hey, it doesn't look as bright now. That's nice. Uh, anyway, where was I? So, where do we go from here? In gaming as a whole, because wherever you look, there's going to be some form of gambling, no matter which way you slice it, really. Which is a big problem, if you ask me, because that tells studios making these games that they don't have to try as hard to be innovative or creative, or they're not actively trying to improve upon with the groundwork that they've laid out for themselves in the past. The expectations we've had to come to the conclusion of whether or not a game is worth playing. And if you ask me, a game is worth playing depending on how much fun you have on it. If you're not having fun, then what's the point? There's no point at all. For me personally, I haven't really been playing that many new games. I've been catching up, kind of. And One, like, if a game has gotcha mechanics, I just don't bother playing it because gambling isn't cool. It was never cool, and that's what a vast majority of these game companies don't get. That games were never made to be sold as a slot machine or as a scratch off. It was meant to be something to play and enjoy, and the adventure you have in said game was the purpose of playing, not all this other junk. And it started with games that had collectibles. That ruins the experience for me too at times because I'm playing the game for one reason, right? It's to have fun. And collectibles are a cheap way of making the game seem more fun because there's more to do when it's not really adding very much at all. And like I'm okay if like a game has collectibles and there's some type of item or map or something that allows you to find those collectibles without needing an external source. But not all games are like that. The majority aren't like that. Well, the majority in the past aren't like that, but the ones of today, yeah, they're pretty similar to that, I would say. uh, which is good. That's a step in the right direction. That's an innovating step towards towards incorporating collectibles into the game, and it's even more so if the collectibles do something. If like you collect, say, 10 of these golden spheres or something, and you unlock the ability to double or triple jump. That's a very rudimentary explanation, but I think it works here because if a game is pushing collectibles, then it should push an incentive for those collectibles other than the fact to just collect them. It's why I don't really like games that have collectibles into or embedded in the achievement system of those games, the achievements or trophies of those games. Because at that point, are you doing it because it's fun, or are you doing it because you get a pretty little icon that you can look at for 5 seconds and forget exists? And to me, that's usually the latter. That's why I don't do it. Achievements and trophies as a whole, they don't really hold any merit for me. They don't really do it for me. Um, I imagine it does it for some people, but not me. And it's those some people that the gotcha games are trying to reel into with their promise of all this collectible BS. They're reeling you in because the premise of collecting everything is there. I mean, this has been going on since the start of like Pokemon and Magic the Gathering and Yu Gi Oh! All that fun stuff. It has been there for a very long time. The act of collecting everything. And then the collecting everything idea just got transferred to a game. And that's how you end up with the gotcha games, which is really stupid because it was never a good idea to begin with. It was a good idea from a financial perspective, but if we were all collectively trying to get away from greed, then it's not a very good choice, I think, for a game to have that specifically, which is a shame because we are entering 2026 in 6 months. And how do you make a new gaming what you call it, a new gaming way, I guess, a new gaming way. How do you do that? Yeah, one sec. You do that by getting innovative, but greed heavily stifles innovation. So when there's a system in place that's just going to work over and over again, why bother doing anything else? There's no point. It's like a bad joke, you know. It only makes some people laugh, and those some people, the person telling the joke is whom they are looking for. What was I going for there? Whoever laughs at the joke is the reason why they keep telling it. Yeah, that makes sense. And it doesn't end there. People tell bad jokes all the time, but they also tell good jokes. So why do the good jokes often get left behind? You know, like if you were to look at pick any game franchise that has tried to branch out. If you look at Battlefield, with Battlefield Hardline being one of the cracked ones, or you look at Sonic, and all the various 3D games that they've had. You know, they incorporated different game mechanics from previous games into the future games, and that was very innovative. And it's because like the Sonic fan base was always going to be there for them. Sega had a long running relationship with their fans, and that's why such mechanics can evolve, because the fans will always be there for them. But then if you get, games coming out of nowhere, like Genshin Impact or Zenless Zone Zero, or what was that one other one? There was another Gacha game that came out, Fate Grand Order or something. So, you get the gist. You're here listening. Why, like, where did these games come from? Who made them? I don't mean just the company. I mean, like, who pushed for their existence? Who fronted the bill? And if you investigate, I mean, I haven't, so I don't know too much about it. But if you investigate, I'm quite certain you'd find that the same people who own or have directed these games in some capacity also have a place in gambling establishments, or have been to gambling establishments and seen and recorded and gone over everyone involved in said establishment, which is just awful. It's awful to me because it's taking advantage of people. The gaming market is like really dry right now, and this isn't the drink of water that people were looking for, but it's what they get, and they make the most of. But they shouldn't make the most of it. It's because of convenience, I think. Convenience allows them to get these games. Yeah, it is convenience because all these games are free. It's the fact that anyone can play them that makes them so appealing to buy and gamble on and stuff. And that's fair. If it works for them, and one could imagine it's going to keep working for them. My legs are cold. I still don't think it's a good step or the right step to take for games like in a dry market like this. What we got to do is re-explore, older games, in my opinion, and see what we still don't have of today, and see if something works. Like, if you take Pal World or something, that has the mechanics of like 4 or 5 different games in it. You got the exploration, like in like in a Nintendo game, I guess, or a Bethesda game. I mean, it is a really big world, Pal World. Then you have the Dark Souls mechanic with the rolling. Then you have the creatures mechanic, like with Pokemon. Pokemon. And then you have the build and craft mechanic, like from Ark. And even though it drew from those games, it still made it work. It's its own thing now, and that's really cool. It's like, why aren't more games doing that? Why aren't they drawing a little bit from different games and making a new one entirely, one that they can mark as their own and not feel bad about? Not that I think any of these people feel bad. They know exactly what they're doing. They're taking advantage of the consumer, just like what gambling establishments do, just like what the lottery does. They're all taking advantage of gamers, flipping gamers, and that's awful. Just truly awful. And it just keeps happening because people are simple creatures at times. The people buying into these gotcha games thinking that, like, they're having fun, and they are having fun, but they're having fun for the wrong reasons. It's no different than, like, again, the gambling establishment. If you were to go and gamble, yeah, you're going to have fun, all right. But it's not exactly the kind of wholesome, down to earth fun that people think of when you tell them, hey, let's go have some fun. They're not going to be thinking of that area. They're going to be thinking of like go karts or something. I don't know. But they're not going to be thinking of that. Be really, really interesting if they did, but I don't think they have the. They're not conditioned to where they're going to think it's fun for them right off the bat. And that's why a lot of these games also have like incentives to bring your friends along. Like if you refer friends and stuff, you get items and junk in game, which is also a really sneaky tactic that they love to employ because it works. It brings in more revenue because there's just more chance of people buying. It's the same logic like if you had some kind of supplement to sell and you go grab the phone book and you make 100 calls, and out of those 100 maybe only 5 buy it. Like they're using sheer numbers to their advantage, and everyone's okay with that. Everyone's okay with it because they're getting something out of it, but what they're getting is just like little trickles, little drops, little drops of water, while they're getting that massive. Yeah, you've seen the image of that fat guy getting a ton of water while there's a really skinny guy getting just drops of water. Yeah, that's them. And we as consumers are so brainwashed to think we're getting a good deal out of that exchange. And we're really not. Not to say that me personally, not to say that I do it. Um, I do own up to the fact that I've tried a few gotcha games before. Technically speaking, I'm playing one right now. Um, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is kind of a gotcha game, but at least you can At least you can manipulate the result to a degree compared to just how ridiculous something like Genshin Impact is, where like you unlock all these special abilities the more you have of that one character. And then there's tons of characters to get. Like there's enough time and gameplay there for like 10 years of your life. Keep trying to get them. It's too long, it's too much. There's no room like for other games with that in mind. But boy, do they keep you playing. They keep you playing with daily rewards or special events. I mean, if I gave her a rough estimate, I'd say I probably have around 1,000 hours on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, and I don't even play it that often as I think. But every time I pop on, that's time that gets added up, and time I'm spent contemplating if I should buy some more gems in that game, which I don't. I did um, think about it. I think I got the limited edition thingy and the one-time purchase gems just to catch up because I started playing the game a year after it came out. And I needed something to solidify my account in case there was ever a cyber attack. Past that point, though, there's really no. Yeah, I've never bought gems in that game past that point because there was no need. You could get feasibly everything you needed to make a deck in that game um, without spending a dime. And the same could be said for Genshin Impact and stuff, but it takes time. I mean, for me, I spend, well, unless there's an event, about 10 minutes a day on Master Duel. And if you multiply that by about 2 months, that gives you enough gems to get a decent deck going on. It might take longer, which, I mean, 2 months is crazy to think about. But if you're only doing 10 minutes a day, it's not really as bad, especially if you enjoy those 10 minutes. But then you get the gotcha games where it's like several hours a day and even more hours during the events. Like, where do people find the time to grind? And they don't. So, what do? They go and buy. They go and buy gems or tonics or potions or jewels or whatever the hell because they can't afford to spend the time to get the same amount of enjoyment as someone who has the time to grind for it. And there's a cut on my finger. Where'd that bump come from? Oh no, it's been there. Hey, you want to see? Yeah, where'd that come from? Anyway, uh, where was I? Something about gacha games and all that fun stuff. Um, what the hell was I talking about? All right, right, right. Hours. It takes countless hours to get even remotely close to what you want in the game, depending on which gacha game it is. Which, if you compare that experience to like a single player game, it could even be a long game, like Dying Light 2 or flipping the Long Dark or something. A lot of survival games are pretty long too. The thing is, the satisfaction you get playing those games is justified by the fact that you can actually see all the progression you've made in them. Like if you play a game like Don't Starve, You can see your base improving, all the different machines that you have, all your chests full of loot, how spruced up your base looks. Yeah, that's nice. It's the same with like Green Hell or Pal World. You see the growth as you put hours into the game, and that's fun. But when it comes to like gotcha games, it's hard to see that growth. It's like sure you could take a step back and admire all these characters or cards or whatever the heck. But it doesn't like there's not as much weight to it as like say beating an endgame boss and wearing his loot as armor. Like that's cool. That concept is cool and it took you time to get to that point. So when you finally get it, it's justified. Like the trip was worth it. It's just when you take all that. No, you do. Yeah, you take all of that away though when you buy it, because instead of a in-game fantasy experience, you had to do a real life experience in order to pay for a partial fantasy experience. And I say partial fantasy because like it's not really playing the game at that point if you buy your way to victory. Like what whales do. If you don't know what that term is, it's just a term for a player that sinks thousands of dollars into a game. Usually a gotcha game. There aren't many other games with $1,000 that you can even spend on them, and that's kind of crazy. Because at the end of the day, one sec. At the end of the day, the amount of money you have justifies how much fun you have in these games, depending on how bad they are. And some, some hide it really well. Like if you look at I think it's War Thunder or War Robots or something like that. Not sponsored. Uh, that game doesn't have like the inherent feelings of gotcha, but you can't help that it is totally pay to win. Like the amount of money you spend is directly tied to how well you compete with others. How well you compete with others. And that's a real problem if you ask me, because then it creates this dissonance of okay, well, let's say I spend $500, a real humble sum on war robots, right? Then after doing that, another game comes out promoting the same mechanics, but it looks cooler than war robots. So you're more inclined to oh no. If you already sunk $500, you're more inclined to stay playing war robots than you are to move on to another gotcha game. And that's what these games are trying to do. They're trying to forever have a hold on you and ensure that you can't get away. Because once you start sinking money into it, then you're going to start feeling bad about that fact and you're going to go back to that game, even though better stuff comes out in that time. And, that's one of the big problems of gotcha games, how they hold back the gaming industry from doing better. Because now instead of, everyone trying to be the next GTA or the next Zelda or the next Mario, everyone's just like, how much money can we make and how long can we keep these people, the game's player base, how long can we keep them here playing our game? That's what they're asking now. And I'm sure to some small capacity, bigger industries are asking that too. But they can take the fall if things go south. Whereas these gotcha games, they're up and coming. They can't afford to take the fall. Yeah, to take the fall. So they do what they think is going to work. And boy, are they right most of the time. Yeah. I just don't think these games should be called games for that reason, though. Like, if you download like a slot machine game or a blackjack game, you know exactly what you're getting into when you get those games. But like, if you give a gotcha game to someone that isn't too familiar with gambling, they're going to start associating what gambling does for them to the gotcha game. So rather than, doing something meaningful, like enjoying themselves on the game, they're going to start looking for that high that the game gives them. And if they can't get it from that game anymore, they're going to go to something else. They could, no, they usually do it on the game, is the thing. People will be out here gambling their life savings away on stupid gotcha games, no less. Like, at least buy like 10,000 lottery tickets or something. That'd be better. Which is crazy to think. Oh, whoops. Just kicked the table. That would be better. Because like at least you'd have more to show for it at that point. The thing is, these gotcha games, they are avoiding a legal loophole because their mechanics don't involve money being received by the player back if they succeed in them. So that's how they're able to avoid a lot of legal battles, I think, because they're not considered gambling games. Gotcha is a made up term that people just associate with these games. It's not a game that they label themselves. At least I don't think. Because one, it looks bad on them, and two, it helps them save space when it comes to legal trouble. All kinds of sneaky mechanics like those, just it's really depressing. Honestly, because if you're gonna make a game, you should make something unique. Not something that everyone else is doing, and not something, yeah, not a principle that has already existed for a long time. Like, you can't remake the wheel. And that's what they're trying to do with gambling, but for less reward, way less reward. Like, it's a watered down version of regular gambling. Because at least with regular gambling, you can make money. You can pay off your debt. You can buy a house. You can buy a car. Yeah, no, those are things that impact your life. Those are some big things. And the fact that you can't do that despite spending the same amount of money in these games, it's like a scam. It's like buying something that doesn't exist. And that's the principle that these games are based off of. The fact that you're willing to buy something that does not exist, and they know it, so they take advantage of you for that. And that sucks. It sucks because, like, where are we supposed to go for our new games if every game is gotcha in some way? Overwatch 2, people didn't like what they were doing, but they didn't stop playing. They didn't boycott the game because the game was still free to play. So no matter how much attention gets brought to this subject, people are still going to be playing these games because they're easy to play. If you ask me, I had a friend tell me that they're like Apple is including free emulators with their phones or something like that. And that's a cool idea, you know. All these old games, you know, the money that they made is long gone, long been spent on stuff, and nobody knows about them. They're just rotting away, um, gathering dust. You know, why not release games like those for free for people to play and enjoy, even though like they're not going to make any money off of them because they've already probably exceeded the amount of money they wanted to make on those games. And now that nobody cares about them, what difference does it make if people get free access to them? And it's not hard to get free access to games like those either. Also, me. Perfect. It was tilted a little. But yeah, what are these games, you know, what do they really have to offer if if the competing games, you know, the older games are vastly superior in like every way because if you look at like the old Pokemon games, there was a gotcha aspect to it, but it didn't cost you anything to do that. Like if you wanted to find rare Pokemon, you'd have to go to these certain areas, walk through certain like blades of grass and stuff, and hope that you got it. But you would eventually get it. Now imagine that same principle, but for every attempt, you have to pay something. Where's the fun there? It doesn't make any sense. I was want to say, doesn't make any sense. You know what are we to do if we can't play the game because we don't have any money? Nothing. But again, that's what they're luring you in with the fact that you don't have to put up money to play the game. I really need to get a chair or I need a table that lifts this up a bit more. Um, Probably like by half a foot or so. Anyway, where was I going with this? Uh, yeah, no. If this is the new norm, if this is the new norm of gaming, I'm not interested. You know, like I'll just keep playing the occasional gem that I can dig up or find, even though it takes hours to do that. Oh, that's annoying. It takes hours, but it's worth it. You know, it's a lot of fun finding something in a treasure chest full of mud, finding a shiny rock. Yeah, finding shiny rocks. Yeah, that's kind of what new Pokemon games are doing, actually. Don't they have shiny monsters or whatever? So now instead of just collecting them all, you now have to collect shinies and all the other ones. And now they have like super evolutions or whatever. All that crazy fun stuff. Yeah. It just like makes Pokemon bigger or something. You know, that's neat. Um I don't really see it adding to the gameplay all that much though. You know it's bad if a big company like Nintendo is getting on that boat. Is getting on that boat because they're trying to normalize it. And the more companies that join in, you know, it will be the norm. And that's what really scares me, you know. Like you've probably seen it. modern gaming is pretty dead, all things considered. Before there was like absolute bangers getting rolled out, every year. But now it's like maybe one or two that's worth playing, and even that's a stretch. And usually when it is, it's some hodgepodge of game mechanics, similar to Pal World. Um, but it's never the right mechanics, because at least Pal World is sandbox. The amount of time you dedicate to it is parallel to how much time you want to spend in it. Like the enjoyment comes from just playing the game. There's no extra factor to it. To it, uh, but what's that other game? Oh, there was another one that came out. Another sandbox one. Actually, no, I can't think of it. Games are getting too long, though. Honestly, yeah, I'm starting to see it. Ugh. Collectibles and gacha don't help that fact. And I don't really think either of them are very healthy for the gaming industry. So, despite what you hear from popular gaming YouTubers, actually no, what am I saying? They're all on board as well. The games today are just getting worse, and gacha as a category shouldn't even exist. It should be lumped in with games like Texas Hold'em, Roulette, or Blackjack. There are other games too. There's like Baccarat, CeeLo, um, other ones. They're out there, but the fact that they're not is misleading people. If I see a cool free game, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, hey, it's free. I'll give it a shot." But if it says warning on it, this game contains elements of gambling on it, then I'm less inclined to play it. And most people should be like that too. I think most people are like that too. It's the fact that it doesn't have that label that everyone's doing it though. It's the same with like cigarettes or alcohol before they had warning labels on them. Uh, you never know what you're getting into until it's too late. And that's usually the case with all these gotcha games. Like, you're going to be sunk 200, 300, 1,000, 10,000. No, I don't think so. Really, really in there for these stupid games. Like, and yeah, again, I do play one, Master Duel. In Master Duel, though, there are card variants. Um, the thing is, though, you can still play the base variant with nothing else, and it'll do the exact same thing as the special variant. And that's good. I don't mind that. I mean, it's still annoying, but at least your game isn't affected by it. Versus like War Robots or Genshin Impact, where if you don't have this upgrade for this character, then you're just toast. You can't just take the base version and run with it because you're finished. It's already over for you. And as the game, grows in time, it only gets worse, and you need more. You sink more money, and then boom, new game comes out. Then the whole process starts all over again. No, I don't think there's going to be a new game like Yu-Gi-Oh. Just because you can't really extend past what Yu-Gi-Oh Master Duel is doing. But a game like War Robots or Genshin Impact or Zenless Zone Zero, there's new games like those coming out all the time. and they're all fairly similar to each other, and that's awful. Where's the creativity? Where's the fun in making those games when they're all the damn same? They rope you in with really uh, erroneous, erotic character models, and they get you hooked on the basic, most stupidest mechanics that most games, prior to them, wouldn't even think about touching upon because it's basic. It's very basic to have a gotcha game. Now, I mean, maybe it wasn't, like 4 years ago, 6, 10 years ago, because it was the Wild West, so to speak, of gotcha games still. There weren't many out there. But now it's everywhere. Everyone's just so greedy, and like it sucks because you just want to play a good game. You just want to buy a good, or you just want a good game available to be played. It doesn't matter the price as long as it's a good game. I will say though, I usually buy my games on sale, uh, but that's besides the point. Um, I know this is going to sound crazy, but what if instead, right, for the gotcha games, they just made it illegal or they banned any free game with gotcha mechanics? That'd be cool. Then, games like Vampire Survivor, Vampire Slayer, games like those could start to shine because like it's free and there's no gotcha mechanics in it. You can buy DLC to add more content, but you don't need to do that to enjoy the game. Like it's available there if you want more out of it, and it's the same with DLC for every game. Gotcha like loot boxes and stuff. It's kind of like a DLC too, but it's a DLC you have to keep buying. You can't just one and done it, and that's really lame. Super lame because wherever you go, whatever platform you use, you're always going to find something worth playing. But the phone market, you know, there aren't a lot of good games on there. So the idea of a good game gets washed out due to gotcha games being readily available, along with most free games. Like typically a free game is trash, when it first comes out, and then if it gets popular or not, then changes come to it, which is neat. They did that for Fortnite, Warframe. There's a few others. Loadout isn't one of them. Well, it works for them, even though they have loot box or gotcha mechanics. At least, like, you can play the game without them because those mechanics are purely cosmetic. They just change up how a character or a gun looks, a weapon looks. And that's fine. As long as there's no in-game advantage you get with having these mechanics, then I'd say, more power to you for that game. People will buy it if they want to look different. Even then, though, if I ever ran a game like that, I feel like it would be good if there wouldn't be duplicates, because a lot of those games have duplicates, and yeah, they have crafting systems similar to Yu-Gi-Oh, but the crafting systems are usually pretty trash, and you need like tons of duplicates in order to do anything with them. So if we could get rid of the duplicate system and get rid of free games with gotcha mechanics. I think it just might be enough to save gaming. Saying that with a straight face. Like this is a real problem. It is still a problem. It's not as like important of a problem as some other problems in the world right now. A lot of them, but it is a problem in the gaming industry. So it's warranted to talk about, and that's where we are now, and have been for the past 50 minutes, according to my live count. How has it been 50 minutes? You just hear talking to yourself, and time just flies by. Not that I mind anyway. It's good to give the old vocal cords a little run along, or a little run around, as it were. So I guess what do I cover now? I'd say like the whole gotcha game situation has been pretty much run through the run through the paces. Is that it? Run through the washboard. Yeah, that's what happened to it. So, anything else in gotcha that we haven't really gone over yet? No, not really. Like again, there are good free games that have come out. They just they don't capitalize on the fact that players would be more willing to spend if they knew there was an end to what they're buying. That's why people still buy games, because they know they can rest easy with the fact that they're not going to need to buy it again. But when you bring loot boxes and all that good stuff into it, you're no longer set in your purchase. It's like buying an IOU and seeing how it works. And most of the time, it doesn't work at all. And yeah, that's not really good for an industry like gaming. So more people are inclined to not buy newer games now because the free gotcha games exist. At the end of the day, it is all about your personal enjoyment in whatever game or game type you like to play. I just think, sometimes the line gets crossed when your money is involved. An honest exchange is buying a game and being able to play it when you want, however long you want, without responsibility. That's good, honest commerce to me. A gotcha game, though, it's not a whole lot of sauce in that capacity because you're more inclined to buy more, and that makes you more addicted to the game rather than enjoying the game. And there is a difference. When you get to like the upper levels of addiction, you start to notice that whatever you're doing that you're addicted to is no longer as enjoyable as it once was. It just feels like a chore, which is exactly what happens whenever these games come out with new content. Because now you're back in the saddle, baby. You are buying another 10, 20, $50 investment. It's not really an investment, though, it's a liability uh, in this game. And you just wait until the next one. You're glad that you were able to get in there and get everything when you could. But you can't help, escaping the feeling that you're not having fun doing it anymore. It's no longer enjoyable to find. Oh, one sec. Oh, cracked my leg. It's no longer enjoyable for you to play these games because uh, they take too much. They're asking you for too much. So the whole point of the game, which is for you to have fun, is no longer there, and you're stuck wondering why you're playing the game now. And that feeling is terrible. I've had it a few times with games I've had hundreds of hours on, and it does suck. You know, I did I did like playing these games at one point, and then suddenly it hits you that hey, maybe I've played this game enough. It's time to move on. So now your brain is working towards not having as much fun on that game because you know deep down it's time to move on. It's time to forget about this game. But that message, you know, it does suck, but it does need to happen because otherwise you're gonna just game your life away. And if there's no game worth playing, you're less inclined to play them in the first place, which is why game companies need to really ramp up what they're doing to keep the gamer base interested in them. Gacha is just a cheap cop out to getting to that point, and it's really mid at that. You know, you can have a fun gambling game, right? You just gotta think of one. Any game where, like, when you gamble and it's in your favor, that's fun. Like Schedule One. I know this because I looked at a video. The odds of you winning at the slot machines in Schedule 1 are slightly in your favor. So you're more inclined to play because you know you're going to win. You know, and that's fun until you get to a certain amount of money. Get off there. Once you get to a certain amount of money, you don't need to do it anymore. You can move on from the slot machine. Or like if you take New Vegas, you know, Fallout New Vegas. If you have like 10 luck or something, and you play blackjack or roulette, you will win every time. Oh, and that's a lot of fun. That's really cool. The thing is, the most of the time you won't need all the money you're making, though. Like, money is pretty arbitrary in the Fallout games. I don't know about the first two, but I know in the last three, there doesn't really do a whole lot, honestly. It's fun to get it, see those numbers go up, and that's fun. But you get to a point where it's no longer enjoyable to do, so you just forget it. You move on to a different mechanic, like you know the actual meat of the game. Like in Schedule One, it was to sell substances, and in Fallout, it was to shoot people. Uh, well, that and quests and stuff. It was fun in those games. It still is fun. People still play them today, despite the fact that there are gambling mechanics in them. Because the gambling mechanic is so small, it doesn't matter. It's like if you took Genshin Impact, right? You took the 6 characters you need system to make one character really cool, and you made it so that character already has those perks. You just get a badge or something that you can put next to your character or on their character if you end up getting that character again. That would do it. Then you could have the core gameplay saved without needing to spend anything and just have a little extra on the side if you happen to get that character and you like the symbol that you get if you were to get that character. But I guess it never. You know how it is. Greed stifles innovation, and I don't think that's going to stop here. Anyway, I got into my hour mark. I could probably go for more, honestly, but it's getting kind of late. I don't know if you can see. No, you can't see. It's dark outside. And yeah, I'd say that concludes this episode of the Smuggles Show. Like and subscribe, if you thought this was cool. And I'll see you whenever I do another one. Or my weight loss videos. Either one. I'll see you later. Oh, there we go.